of time around what is BI Builder, how to do some of the navigations. I'm going to show you how to add a filter and then to customize some of the charts. And at the end, we'll do some Q&As. I've asked some people from my office just to let me know if there's a hand that was raised. Otherwise, just try and keep your questions to the end and we'll deal with it as we move ahead. So what is BI Builder? For those of you who do or don't know, Bitrix launched probably about 4 years ago a BI connector for Google Looker Studio as well as for Power BI, and it worked really well. The problem was you had to have separate licenses, deal with it in a separate environment, and continuously had to write script to get your data in and out of BI Builder or in Power BI or into Google Looker Studio. BI Builder has not replaced those two items. The reason they are still there and are used widely by a lot of customers is that you can then link your own API. As people join, if you don't mind just muting, you can now link your own APIs into those two items. But in the cases where you don't need it and you just want to use the data from Bitrix itself, BI Builder works wonderfully because it is native to Bitrix24. So why use it? Bitrix already had a lot of reports in there, canned reports as I call them. You were able to edit them, you were able to add some basic charts, basic functionality, but it wasn't really pretty. So even though it worked, I was not a big fan of it. And when first of all, the first BI connectors came out and now BI Builder, I was super excited because for the first time we could actually build dashboards that was built for a audience that could use it and actually analyze their data and also share it amongst the rest of the people in data. So that being said, let's rather stop the talking and let's look at some dashboards and show you what is available in Bitrix itself. So this is our Bitrix demo system. So we won't hurt anybody by sharing this data because it's all fake. If you go into your Bitrix and you cannot find your BI Builder, you can always click on the top search. You can type BI Builder. You can see I've searched for it a lot and you can find it from there. For those who are familiar with Bitrix, you should be able to find it there. Or if you look on the left-hand menu, it should also be there. If you're going to use it often, as with any other menu item, you can just drag it onto your screen where you can then view the BI Builder data. Now, the first thing, for those of you who have been using, BI Builder for a while, you would have noticed about a week or two ago, there was a major change where they added, I call them folders, they call them groups. But what happened now is your dashboards actually got organized in a very nice and neat format. Before it was just a list of reports and you had to go search and filter for everything that you needed. You now have folders. Now, if you want to add a new folder to group your own reports, you can always just click on create. There's a option to say new group, and then you can add a new group. You give it a name. We'll call it demo. And then you can already add dashboards if they already exist. So if you want to do one like that, you can add that, and let's just add deals analytics as well. And if you save, you now have a new folder called demo. You open it up, and those two reports that I've just added is available to be used. If you want to go back to the previous screen, you can obviously use your back button, but you can also clear the filter there, and you should now go back to your folder structure as when you arrived in BI Builder. Also note that any custom reports that's been built before this folder structure arrived, they've already grouped it into this item called new group 1. So you can see them there, but you can now move them. So if you want permissions. So if you go in your BI Builder, there's a folder or a menu item called Settings. You click on Access Permission. This allows you to manage who can see which dashboards and what can they do with it. By default, you have these three groups that's created, but you can create your own group, and you can call this test for argument's sake. And you can then start adding people to that. So I can add Sandra to that group. And Sandra is now part of this new role called test. And then I can decide, what do I want Sandra to do? So yes, can she have BI Builder access? Yes, it would be kind of nonsensical not to give her access. Can she create dashboards? No. Can she add tags, etc., etc.? All of these you can go through. And then on a folder or dashboard level, you can also add or deny access for that individual role. Don't get a fright when you see that administrator. It actually says all folders have been denied, purely because administrator is administrator. They can actually still see all the reports. The other interesting thing is your general settings that you have under your BI Builder. So when you go to your preferences, there's a couple of items to just be aware of. If you build a dashboard or you have a dashboard that has no date filter, Bitrix will by default filter the data for performance reasons based on what you select here. So that is just, I actually want to implore people never to build a report without a date filter, purely because it could open up or make your reports very slow. So when we get to these settings, you can decide that any report that has no date filter, the data will by default be filtered for whatever you select under this dropdown. And as I said, for performance reasons, be careful not to make that too big, because it could slow down reports, especially on some of our customers with bigger data sets. It is also important to understand that it's always better to rather have a date filter on a report. But I know there's instances where you would not want to do that. You have also the option of who gets notified when either someone created a new dashboard or when new dashboards are added by Bitrix. Bitrix tend to add new dashboards probably at the rate of a couple a month. It will probably slow down over time, but they do add quite a few. So at least some people are notified when new data arrives. By default, BI Builder data will refresh on the hour. It's built on a platform called Apache Superset. So the data is actually, the dashboards aren't native inside Bitrix, although it looks like it's inside Bitrix. But that is why it only refreshes every hour. But you sometimes have a need to go update the data yourself. So you can click there, that will update the data. You would have seen a little black box arrived there at the top that said data has been refreshed. Sometimes it will pop up and say it will be available in the next 5 minutes. Once you've done that, it's disabled for 5 minutes. So you can't sit here and click and click and click on this and refresh it, because at the end of the day, you'll have an impact on everybody.
I just ask, if you can't see full screen, make sure you click on his icon on the conference.
Okay. Then this encryption key, I've only had to use this once, and this was for a customer where their access to their BI Builder for some reason disappeared. You then need to update the key and enter it. In general, I would not think that it would ever be needed. As I say, in the year and a half that BI Builder has been around, I've only had to use it once for a customer. And this little button, I almost want to say, I wish they would take it away. I'm going to click on it, but it warns you. It says all your data, dashboards, and data sets will be deleted. You can only enable your BI Builder again in 24 hours, but any custom reports you've done will be gone, as well as data sets. So please don't do that. Dangerous. And if you've done it, don't phone me. I can't bring it back. Cool. So that was everything around how to deal with your settings. So let's go look at a dashboard. As I said, I've opened up Deal Analytics. On this screen, you'll see there's a couple of statuses. If your Bitrix is fairly new, you might see this button not showing ready. There's a period where when you open up your Bitrix the first time, it kind of refreshes all the dashboards. It shows you who the owner is, which is important because you cannot edit someone else's dashboard. I can only edit my own. Sorry, I just want to... Sorry, there was a frog in my throat. Okay, and which groups you in, folders as I like to call them, the scope, in other words, what part of Bitrix does this report cover, any parameters that's there by default, and where do they come from. In this case, it's all built-in dashboards, and they've been, as I showed you in your settings, your range is 365 days. So let's open up our Deal Analytics, and we'll deal with some navigation around this. So your screen is spread into three main sections at this stage. So on the left, you've got your filters. Very simply, you can actually remove or hide that section if you want more real estate. And these are all filters that you can use. So if I, for argument's sake, want to filter this report just for the responsible person BI helper, I can select it. Won't filter automatically. You do need to click on Apply Filter, and you'll see it brings a little infinity sign up, and now all the reports have been filtered. To remove it, you literally just click on that filter and you click on that, and that will refresh your data. So filters are important to filter your data in the way you want to see it. The date filter's got quite a few additional options. So currently it's set to advanced, which means you can put a start and end date in there. You can go for something like last and say, show me all of my data for the last week, last day, quarter. I'm not going to read through all of it. You can go previous. Now you've got previous week, calendar month, and calendar year. And your advanced, we'll look at now. You can also remove the filter completely. So under the advanced is where you can put a start and end date in. So in most cases, I've seen it works better to default your filter to a start and end date, but people can then now go select whatever they require. The other part that is also sometimes missed is this top part. So these are almost like tabs in an Excel sheet, just at the top and not at the bottom, where you can now choose which tab you want to use, and you can kind of go through all the different reports. So again, it makes it easier having a dashboard, but not try and put everything on one screen, rather split it across screens. Our general rule has always been no more than 6, but I see Bitrix don't kind of apply my rules. And then at the top is also a simple way to just quickly go from one report to another one. So regardless of your folder structure, you can actually very quickly just go find your report that you're looking for, and you can go back to that. Okay, so there we go. And then you've got an option here to download. You can do a JPEG or you can do a PDF at this stage. We've been promised Excel will follow at some point, but it's not there yet. You can also send your chart to someone on your chat inside Bitrix. So I can send this again to Laura, and I can send it, and this will send a PDF version of this report. So for discussions amongst staff members or anybody who's on your Bitrix, these ellipses actually gives you an option to order a custom dashboard. Please note that goes to Bitrix, doesn't come to us directly. So if you do need custom built dashboards, rather talk to us directly, and you can add some feedback. And as I said earlier, you cannot edit someone else's dashboard. Now, because these dashboards were designed by Bitrix, you can see that I can now, once I click on edit, it warns you it's going to create a copy. When I say continue, then we'll see that it creates a new dashboard there with, in brackets, the word copy, which means this is now my dashboard and I'm able to make changes to it. You unfortunately have to click edit again if you want to change anything. So we'll just click edit. The first time you open this up, it will ask you your permission and a key. On your Bitrix, there's a key that will appear. It won't appear on mine anymore because I've entered it already, but it's fairly straightforward. And once you get to this screen, this is now where you can start making changes to dashboards. So to also explain the following, the structure of how data is built is you've got SQL data. So that's your raw data as it appears in the database called, or it's a database type is called Trino. That then is saved in a data set, and the data set is then used in a chart, and the charts are all added to a dashboard. Now, I hope I haven't lost anybody here because this is the important part. So the building blocks are basically these data, which you can use in a data set to build a little picture and then ends up on a dashboard. So what you see here is a dashboard. So let's start with one of the simple things in life that a lot of people would want, and that is just to edit or add filters. I'm actually going to open up another one, which is a report that has no responsible person. So those are one of those simple ones that people would want. Again, as I say, you click edit. This is going to open up a copy of it. Just give it a second to refresh. So I'm doing 10 things at the same time now with poor Bitrix. Let's go. There's my copy, and I'll go edit again. And on the left, once you're in the edit option, you can see there's the edit dashboard side, which we'll go into now, but then there's the edit or add filter section. When I click on add or edit, it gives me an option here to add filters or dividers. Now, dividers are where you want to break up your page into multiple, you kind of put a break into your page, but we want to add a filter for now. So I'm going to click on filter, and then you get into some interesting options here. These are the type of filters. So a value kind of allows you to filter on anything in your data set that you're working with. If you work with a one on a numeric range, it will only bring back in the column section here everything that is a numeric. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to whatever number it is, or time ranges or columns, time columns or grains. We're going to use a value one for now. We're going to add responsible person because you have to give it a name. Ooh, spelling. And the data set is by default the data set that is linked to this dashboard. If you have, and we'll talk about scoping now, which is there. If you have multiple data sets that build up your dashboard, if that filter is available across multiple of the data sets, you can then use that filter on all of them at the same time, or you can deselect them. So we now want to go look for the responsible person name. I'm going to do that. For now, I'm just going to save it so you can see what it's going to look like. So now we have a responsible person here. And there's various people, and these are all people that are available now. So let's go edit this filter again. And let's talk about the scoping part. So scoping is allowing you to filter. If I select one responsible person, all of these little charts that's available here will be filtered at the same time. So that allows you to cross filter across all these charts. That makes it so much easier in terms of having to select one filter on everything once you filter it. But you can decide that I don't want that responsible person to be filtered on any of my tasks. tabs. Remember I said you've got these tabs at the top. So I don't want responsible person to be applicable to tasks. And some of the other options that's available, sorry, I shouldn't have closed that, is you can now say values are dependent on other filters. One thing you must remember is this little I, that's your friend. That gives you more information about what this item will do. So if I say this value is dependent on other filters, it's quite simple. I can select that and I can say it's based on the date range. So if I filter for just the previous day, it will then automatically filter responsible persons that had tasks for the previous day. So in reporting services in the old days, we used to call these cascading dimensions. So that is what's available there. We can also say we want to pre-filter the data as it comes in, and we can sort filter values. And this is actually quite handy, where you can say, you know what, I want to filter based on the number of tasks, descending. So when the filter is opened here on this little drop down, it will show you the person with the most tasks, always first. Then there's additional values here where you can say, okay, we've got default values that we want to add. We've got the filter must be filled in before you can actually run this. You can select the first filter by values. So in other words, like I just did here, where I did say sort by descending, it will always automatically filter a report for the person with the most tasks. Multiple values are also important if it's needed, and I'll show you how that works. You can dynamically search on here, and you can go do inverse selections as well, which is also very handy. Inverse selection basically means that whatever I select will be excluded from that report. So instead of saying, well, I've got 10 responsible persons, but I want to see everybody but the support user. You can then say, well, do it inverse. You just select support and it will show all the others except that person. I hope that's very clear, because it wasn't for me in the beginning. So there's Bitrix helper's got the most tasks. That's why he's now at the top, or she. And you can now go use that filter. So very quickly, I've been able to actually change this report to show a filter that can now be used for that report, and based on my scoping, and all the other reports will be filtered based on that. The other nice feature in terms of navigation is you can have cross-filtering. So I can click on that one and you'll see all these other reports will now start refreshing. Now that was not a good example. Let's just go apply the filter again. And once you start doing the cross-filtering, wait, my report has gone a bit weird there. Let's just, actually the best one to do this is on Deal Analytics, and I'll go to Mighty Minds. You can see there it changed all these items because it's now based on this filter that I clicked. So and today we're going to run out of time for me to take into detail of how you set up cross-filtering, but it is available on most of the reports that's built. The one thing just to remember is once you've done it is to go back and remove that filter. It creates a little top there which shows you where your cross-filtering is happening. The last thing I want to quickly touch on is if you want to change the type of chart that you're working with. Remember, we spoke about dashboard charts, data sets, and SQL. The charts are the different types of reports you can have. Now, the easiest way of getting to it, if you just open up charts, it will give you a list of them. You can filter for them, but sometimes it's hard because some of these things are named very similarly. But I find it easier to open up my report, which I know that top one is the one I last edited. And on these little ellipses, I can click there and I can go say edit chart, and it will by default open that chart that I'm busy with. So on the left, you've got matrices. So that's in your data set. Anything that contains a number will by default be a metric. You can actually go write your own as well. And on the left is all your other attributes or dimensions you want to use for this report. Now, because this is a big number, or just a little card with a number on, there's not that many settings that you can have. But then you can go view all chart types. And this then gets really interesting because You can go search for charts, and you can go search for pivot table, and it will give you some of the pivot tables that's available. Be warned as well, because this uses supersets, some charts get deprecated. So if you go to popular, you'll see some are there with the word deprecated or legacy. You can use them, they're still available, but at some point they might disappear. And I have seen some of the older pivot table ones disappear over time. So my preference is don't use those, because they could make your life a little bit more interesting. So if I, for argument's sake, want to just to refresh this, if I want to change this chart type to something like a gauge, I can select gauge, and doesn't change immediately because I have to click update. There was a little warning, and now I've got a gauge. So instead of showing just a number, I can show a gauge. I can go save this, and I can go save it, and that will now update my dashboard. But on all the chart types, there's another tab here called custom, and here you can start changing other things, like I can change the color, and I can change the angle, and I can change what the pointer looks like. And remember, I said to you that little eye helps you decide or understand what that change will do. So if you've got more than one value on this chart, you can have an overlap, or you can show them a separate dial. So those are some of the items you can work with. So I'm going to go back to the dashboard and just show you one more item. If for a bar chart, so if I go edit this bar chart and I go edit, although it's already a bar chart, I might want to decide that I actually don't want it horizontal, but I want it vertical. So I can just click on customize, and you can see now the options are completely different from when I used a gauge. And I can say vertical, and then my items are vertical. And then again, I can change colors. I can use stacked values. And again, I can do a whole day just on different chart types that's available. But it is just good to know that you are not stuck with the standard charts as they appear on the chart, on Bitrix's stuff. You've got loads of them. I told someone this morning I've really tried hard to get the world map working, but apparently South Africa is not great on the latitude and longitude for supersets. So I'll play around one day with that one again. But there are so many different types of charts, some which I will be honest, and I have to admit that I don't even know how they work. But yeah, there are just a lot of different ones you can play with. And again, what is nice is if you choose something like a funnel chart, at the bottom it will explain to you what it does and for what type of data this is valuable. Because in data and design and dashboard design, it's probably the hardest thing is to sit and decide which chart is the right chart for the type of data you're working with. But I can tell you bar charts, line charts, pie charts, donut charts, those are, and gauges, and these big numbers are your friends. Those are generally the 80% of the time the ones I use. Not always the prettiest, sometimes slightly boring, but it does the job in terms of visualizing your data. And that is me on top of 30 minutes. So I saw some questions coming through, Nikos. I don't know if you want to share those with me so we can deal with the Q's and A's. So there was a question about external databases. We have been promised that that is coming, and I actually said I'm not going to go into this today, but I will do this. You have the ability to connect two types of things right now. Sorry, I clicked without saying where I'm going. In your BI Builder, there's a button here called Analytics Hub. You can import data from a CSV. So if you click on connections, on data sets, and sorry, that was me, and you go click create, you've got the ability to import CSV data. So not great. You have to kind of refresh your data every now and again to use that, but at least it's better than what it was 3 months ago. So this is fairly brand new. So I've not used it myself, I will admit that, but I know that it is there. And then on connections, they said they will add more API options, but if you click on it right now, there's only two, for Google Ads and for Facebook. As soon as more arrive, we'll let you know. But those were the new ones they've added, as I said, probably 2 or 3 months ago that arrived. So I hope that answers your question. I wish there were more, and hence the reason why some of our customers are still using the Power BI reporting, because there you've got a myriad of options of adding database connectors to your reports. In this case, no. And the other nice thing I would love them to do at some point is to allow us to connect multiple Bitrix instances. So for some of our customers who've got more than one instance but want to report in a single place, that would be lovely. We have asked, it is in the pipeline. No firm deadline of when that will ever arrive. And I don't know if there's any other questions. Okay, that is just, I hope this helped a little bit in terms of just basic navigation. One thing I do want to ask is if there's specific items you want us to focus on the webinars around BI Builder, please feel free to share that with us. As I said, I can do a whole session just on chart types. I haven't even touched on the SQL side, but that can get very technical, especially if you start joining tables to get your custom fields in. There's a whole section we can do just on how you move your data around. But the idea today was just to get you started and slightly excited about how you can look at your data and view your data and perhaps get some better insights in what is happening in your business. Cool. Thanks everyone for joining. I hope this was insightful. And we'll post this video on our YouTube. It was recorded, so we'll post it on our YouTube channel. And there are lots of other videos as well about Bitrix24 on our YouTube channel that you are welcome to go have a look at and learn more about Bitrix.